Coach TC Taylor says JSU is going to add 15 new players. Well, he said 10 to 15 new players after the spring game. What that means, what we can take from that, and who could some of those players be? I don't know. Let's talk about it after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsYJr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsYJr YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your content. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, and subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload all the time. Now, Coach TC Taylor, the JSU football team, as we know, they've started their spring practice. They're out there on the field. They're getting to it. I think they're on practice like 3 or 4 at some point, somewhere around there. 15 total spring practices. The spring game culminating on April 15th. I will be there in the building. Shout out to everybody that will be there as well. I'll be in Jackson on April 15th to see the spring game. Now, he did an interview after spring practice number 1. I'm just now getting to it. But he did an interview. Him, Niles Gaddy, Evan Henry, Coach, a couple of coaches did interviews. Coach Maurice on the offensive side, Coach Bradley on the defensive side. They all did interviews, short, long, whatever. They all did different sound bites. After practice number 1, just talking about guys flying around. Some of the guys that stood out, Isaiah stood out. Some of the DBs, Jalen Hughes, Kubrick Wiggins, all these guys stood out. But one thing that stood out to me, because I told y'all, when TC talks, Coach TC talks, he don't talk very often. And he'll have to talk more now that he's the head coach. But when he talks, you have to listen. And what he said, one thing that he said that was very, very critical, because he's like, yo, it was first practice. We're early. We got 15 of these things. I said, and like this roster that you're looking at, this is not the roster that we're going to be playing with when we get to Atlanta for the MEAC SWAC Challenge. There will be 10 to 15 guys added to this roster. Obviously, that stands out, right? Now, some of those guys are guys that are signed, right, that don't get to school until May, right? You have some early enrollees like your Bruce Mitchells and your Tristan Sions, but everybody's not an early enrollee. So some of those guys are already signed. But also what that means is this is an evaluation period. As we already know, everybody's being evaluated, coaches and players. Everybody's being evaluated during the spring at every school. But what this also means is a lot of these guys are going to hit the portal. You know, some of these guys that are on the roster right now won't be on the roster that is in Atlanta, that takes the field in Atlanta for the MEAC SWAC Challenge. And so, therefore, this spring is critical. And when you're talking about adding 15 new guys, there are guys that aren't signed right now that'll be on this roster. And so that's why this spring is huge. This spring is huge because we're going to see departures from the team. We're going to see guys transfer out once they realize, hey, you know, either them realizing that they're not going to make the top 3 rotation. Like if you're not top 2, top 3 rotation in the spring, and they're still going to probably add a guy or 2 in your position group, it's probably best for you to move on. And also, you know, they're not going to say this publicly, but this is what every school does across the country. They look at they go to spring, they do their 15 practices, they do the spring game, and then they let young men know, like, hey, you know, I'm going to just let you know, your services are no longer needed. Now, I'm not saying JSU was doing that, but I ain't saying they're not doing that. So that's why when you got your coach saying, yo, we're going to add 15 new dudes, 10 to 15, but 15 new dudes, that means there's a stud somewhere that's either not getting the playing time that he deserves, that's not vibing with the coaching staff, that is doing whatever, that's going to end up on this JSU roster. And there may even be a stud on JSU's roster that ends up somewhere else. See, this is why spring is important. This is why take a keen eye. Shout out to Austin and the content creators over there at Jackson State Football. Just see who you see at the start of spring and see if they're there, because they're content. They're killing it on the content stuff. Who's there during spring? And then who is going to be there in fall camp? Who is going to be there even if they make it to the spring game? Some people might not even make it to the spring game. Him saying 15 new guys, I thought that was interesting. Another thing that I find interesting, I've talked about this in another video, but I'll restate it. Yo, they're going to let that thing fly. I get it. it's shorts, it's t-shirts, it's it's no pads, right? But in the early returns, the early videos that Austin and his crew have put out from JSU football, is that they are going to let that thing fly. Because think about it. You have, if let's just assume Jason Brown wins a starting job. Jason Brown 6'5". Jason Brown like 235, like 230, 235. Jason Brown ain't going out there running around scrambling and stuff. Jason Brown, go look at his highlight tape from when he was at his previous FCS school. Go look at his highlight tape or the plays that he was able to make at South Carolina. He's letting that thing fly 30, 40, 50 yards on a rope. They are going to do explosive plays. Look at the offenses that Coach Maurice was a part of at Liberty, at Ole Miss. They took shots. And one thing Coach Maurice talked about is tempo, tempo, tempo. This is something they've run tempo offense in the past. Like they've been using up-tempo offense. And they did a lot more up-tempo last year than they did the previous year. But they didn't do Ole Miss tempo. They didn't do Liberty tempo. Well, I guess it's, now will be Auburn tempo coming up this year. Tempo, tempo, tempo. And so that's why depth on your defense is critical. Because when you go tempo, especially if you're scoring points, you might have 3-play drives, 4-play drives. And not just 3-4-play drives that only eat up 2 minutes of game clock, a minute and a half. You might have a 60-yard touchdown. And so, therefore, your defense has got to be ready to go. Your defense might have a 10-play drive where they stop them, hold them to a field goal, whatever. Your offense comes and scores in a quick strike, 1 or 2, 3 plays, and you're back out there on defense. So you got to have depth. When you're running tempo, you got to have depth. And this is going to be a high-flying tempo offense that's going to look to score in the first 5 plays of a drive. That's going to be looking to score. They ain't trying to have 12, 15-play drives. No, they're trying to have 5-play drives, 6-play drives, 4-play drives. The less plays, the better, because they're trying to score points. That's going to be interesting as well. 10 and 15 new guys going to be added to this JSU roster come fall camp before they get to before they get to Atlanta. And a high-tempo, fast-paced offense. Go look at the offenses that were run at Liberty the last few years. Go look at the offenses that were ran by Bo Wallace at Ole Miss. That is what you're going to see at JSU with the playmakers like a Seven McGee. You see Trevante Rucker, who's changed his number from 15 to 5, by the way. I don't know if that tells you anything about Shane Hooks, but Trevante Rucker is now number 5. Look at the plays he's making so far from the content that's being put out. I can't wait to see what this team looks like when I get down there for the spring game, April 15th. I can't wait to see all of you all. I hope to meet everybody. Come up, say what's up, dap it up, whatever. But this is going to be a fun year. I'm getting texts from people down in Jackson. It's like, yo, this team is going, by the time it's all said and done, this team is going to be better than the previous 2 years. That's a lot to say. That's a whole lot to say. That's a bold statement. But the folks that have boots on the ground are like, yo, this team is going to be better in 2023 than they were in 22 and 21. It's not to say it's impossible, because the teams in 21 and 22 got beat at the end of the year. They're saying that this team, and that's the motto. I heard Niles Gaddy say it, start in Atlanta, finish in Atlanta. This team, from what the people that are there saying, they're going to be better than they were in 21 and 22. It's a lot to live up to. I can't wait to see it once I get down there for the spring game, and then ultimately what this team looks like when they get to Atlanta for the SWAC Challenge. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Jackson State looking to add 15 new players and to be one of the most tempo, highest tempo, fastest teams in the entire country. It's going to be fun to watch. My name is JeffLightsy Jr. This is the Victory Formation Sports Show right here on JeffLightsy Jr. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your content. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button before you get out of here. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JLightsy7. That's on Twitter and Instagram at JLightsy7. We're coming with more stuff. We got coaches, interviews all throughout the week. We got more players coming next week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Can't wait to see you at the spring game, JSU spring game, April 15th. Can't wait to see you all. Hope to get to another spring game. That's to be determined. I'll let you guys know if that happens. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Peace.